Everyone knows the economy is the top issue this year, but Americans have a lot of different views on exactly what it is about the economy that's important to them.
And we find Barack Obama and Mitt Romney have very different strengths when it comes to the economy.
And a new Gallup analysis, exactly whom are smokers supporting for president. I'm Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters. Well, Susan, a very interesting analysis on a USA Today Gallup poll. As I mentioned in the intro, everybody knows the economy is the top problem, but we went further, right? We actually dissected the economy and gave respondents a list of different economic issues and said, how important is this to you? And then we came back, read the same list, and said, who would do the better job on it, Obama or Romney? And we got some very fascinating results, didn't we? There's a big spread in what Americans think is important.
You know, it's true. And while we talk a lot about the unemployment rate is mattering, it didn't come in first on a list of the issues as most of the issues that are extremely important. The number one issue on extremely important was the federal debt and deficit, and number two was the cost of health care.
All right,
unemployment came a close third.
All right, let's stop right there on health care and the deficit. Who did better on them? Let's look at health care first. Now, the naive observer would assume because Obama's put so much emphasis on health care with the Affordable Health Care Act that he would win going away as being better able to handle health care. He won, but not by that much.
7 percentage points. So a margin for sure, but not anything like the advantage that he and Romney have on other issues.
That may reflect in part the big pushback on the part of Republicans and conservatives to the Affordable Health Care Act. So it's obviously, as we've talked about before in the data, Obama's position on health care cuts both ways, creates a lot of emotions both ways.
Now, the big advantage that Mitt Romney has is on the federal debt and deficit, a double-digit advantage over President Obama when it comes to that issue.
Interesting. Sometimes we don't talk about that, but Americans rated it high. I wonder why Romney does better. Maybe because Obama's been president for over 3 years and we still have a big deficit?
You know, I think it's because Mitt Romney talks about it all the time. He's now traveling with this debt clock behind as a backdrop that shows the national debt ticking up. And he promises to cut spending. We see President Obama really focusing on other issues like helping college students, helping seniors.
Now, unemployment and jobs, that's what gets talked about the most. Yet, neither candidate has an edge on that. It's really up for grabs.
And interesting, if you want to look at who will win the election, maybe the candidate who manages to get a big advantage on handling unemployment is the one who'll have a big advantage in November.
That's very, very interesting. So at this point, that one's right there in the middle. It kind of nets out. About as many people say Obama would do well on it or do better on it as say Mitt Romney.
And the same for the housing crisis, mortgages, the value of homes. That's also one where neither side has a real advantage.
Now, there are a couple of other issues that are at least somewhat important that Obama does well on. One of them, of course, is doing a better job on trying to improve living standards for the poor. Now, I say of course, because Obama has that image in previous data as being the one that cares about the concerns of people like you. And his constituency is probably more focused on the underdog. And of course, with his criticism of the 1% trying to raise taxes on the rich, that all fits in with an image. It's a guy, a politician, a president who would do better for the poor.
Of course, that's not an issue that Americans rate very highly on this list of 10. It ranks 7. He's also ranks much better than Mitt Romney when it comes to the cost of a college education. And of course, that's an issue we've really seen President Obama focus on.
I wonder why, demographically speaking.
His appeal to young people, who are his strongest group of supporters.
Yeah, he needs to do something. The problem with young people, as a small aside, is of course they don't vote in nearly the high numbers of people who are older. So that's a constituency he's trying to nurture, but he's got to get them out to vote. Romney does well on weak economic growth, and that could be a real strength because that's up there near the top of the list, is it not?
Yes.
And Romney does significantly better than Obama on that issue.
On economic growth, that's a Romney advantage, and also on protecting investments and retirement savings. And that could be another one. You know, in some ways you could see Romney is doing better on big macro issues like the federal deficit, and President Obama doing better on some of the personal issues, personal financial issues, like the cost of a college education.
And you know, that fits into a lot of our previous data where we found, like I was talking about before, Obama was more likable, cares more about people like you. Romney seems to be a colder in terms of the image, and yet he does a little better and can manage government, and we're seeing now has some strengths on the aspect of the economy. So these kind of fit in with this positioning, does it not?
It does.
Here's Obama, who cares about the underdog, cares about those who've been deprived in our society, trying to rectify that. And here's Romney, who's maybe more cold to that, but he's trying to fix kind of the big picture of the government, it looks like.
Yeah. Now, you know, there's a target group I don't think either campaign has really talked about, but you've identified it, smokers.
Very interesting, smokers. That's only about nowadays a quarter to a fifth, maybe a little closer to a fifth of the population. But we cross-tabbed it because in our Gallup Healthways data, we ask every single night, who are you, do you smoke or not? And we ask who you're going to vote for. So we're able to do a cross-tab. And this is over 10,000 interviews I put together going back to April. And drum roll, who do you think would do better?
Well, one of them used to smoke, that'd be Barack Obama, and one of them has never smoked.
We assume that Mitt Romney is a good Mormon, never smoked.
So do they go with the fellow smoker?
They absolutely, the data at least that we had showed an 8-point margin, 49 to 41 for Obama among smokers, and then Mitt Romney wins by 2 points among the bulk of Americans who are not smokers. And by the way, to put it all together, they're tied on the ballot, which is what we've been showing on the tracking basically. So Obama wins among smokers. He stopped himself, has he not?
Yes, he says he has. It was one of the things he did after coming into the White House. So if President Obama wins the second term, he'll have smokers to thank.
Well, it could be. That could be the case. Now, we don't want to say it's just because they smoke. People who smoke have certain demographic characteristics that probably historically align them more with the Democratic Party. So it may not have anything to do with the fact that Obama smoked, but it's an interesting finding. That's very, very interesting. We'll see where we go. We round the turn now. Memorial Day, right? Going into the summer.
Yeah.
Convention just about 3 months away.
That's right, a new chapter.
I'm Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters.